folks, today we are talking about the Financial Disclosure Affidavit. I'm going to do a very, very brief overview of the Financial Disclosure Affidavit, after which point Stella will be going through some tips for completing the Financial Disclosure Affidavit from an accountant's point of view, and we will then deal with any questions that have arisen a little bit later. Few caveats before we go in. Understand the FDA is not a perfect document. It has, to a very large extent, in my opinion at least, improved the position in family law matters and divorce matters. However, it is not a silver bullet as yet, for various reasons. There are shortcomings on the document. There are, in my view at least, one or two issues that still need to be ironed out for these documents really to be implemented very, very effectively, as they should be. However, it is a serious improvement on the position before the introduction of the Financial Disclosure Affidavit. Understand that for now, the FDA is only applicable in the Johannesburg and Pretoria High Courts. However, having spoken to several colleagues across South Africa in other jurisdictions, practitioners are already agreeing between themselves to use FDAs as a tool for discussion on settlement and or trial preparation, and we're even seeing it being used in the magistrates' courts. For the mediators among us, obviously, the value of getting a proper financial disclosure from parties in the mediation process cannot be overestimated. And I do also encourage you to start incorporating the Financial Disclosure Affidavit within your practices. So without further ado, I will keep you busy probably for all of 3 to 5 minutes, just going through the who, what, when, where, and why of financial disclosure affidavits, and then I will very conveniently hand over to Stella, who will deal with the how, which is going to take up much more of your time than my 4 sections are. Great. So, folks, let's talk about Judge President's Directive 2 of 2020. Section 3.5 of this directive introduced mandatory financial disclosure affidavits in matrimonial matters in the Gauteng High Courts, notably Johannesburg and Pretoria. Before you ask, I will be distributing it. It has a copy of the FDF attached to the directive, so you will have that shortly after the webinar. We will be distributing that. So let's start with the who, what, when, where, why, how. Very, very briefly put, paragraph 3.5.1, I quote from the directive, FDF annexed to this directive as FDF 1 must be completed under oath together with supporting documentation referred to in the FDF to be exchanged between the parties as set out in the FDF by each party in an opposed divorce action in which maintenance or proprietary relief is in dispute, and in every opposed Rule 43 application in which maintenance is in dispute. So who needs to complete the FDF? Parties to a divorce where maintenance or proprietary relief is in dispute, and also parties in an opposed Rule 43 application in which maintenance is in dispute. Notable mention, it is only in an opposed divorce in which you would complete an FDF. Now, what is required of parties completing the FDF? It must be completed under oath, firstly. Secondly, you must attach supporting documentation referred to in the FDF. Now, that supporting documentation, Stella is going to go into a bit more in detail, and I would go so far as to say that to a large extent, it may be worthwhile to also do schedules which you can attach to your FDF for ease of understanding of the reader, in this case, very prominently the judge. Right, let's talk about when you complete the FDF. And this is somewhere just my 2 cents. I think there would be benefit to FDFs being completed a bit sooner. However, at this stage, we see FDFs in opposed divorce actions being done within 10 days after the defendant has delivered their plea. Now, it does not mention anything in respect of counterclaim or a plea to a counterclaim. So I would interpret this as to be within 10 days of the plea itself, the defendant's plea being delivered, and not after the plea to counterclaim. And my surmise in that regard, why they did put the timing like this, is that is the stage where you will be able to ascertain where the proprietary consequences and maintenance will in fact be in dispute in the divorce action. There would, in my view, be some benefit to exchanging FDFs a bit earlier, perhaps even prior to the plea at notice of intention to defend stage, but that's not within the purview of today's discussion. Then, folks, in a Rule 43 application where maintenance is in dispute, it must be delivered with supporting documentations no later than 5 days after delivery of the sworn reply. Once again, we wait for the battle lines to be drawn before we deliver the financial disclosure form. Notable difference between the FDF in a trial matter, in divorce matters, is that, or versus Rule 43 matters at least, in divorce matters, you do not file the supporting documentation at court as yet. In a Rule 43 under paragraph 3.5.3, which I haven't put on the slide, there are certain mechanisms and rules for actually putting your supporting documentation before court. Then the where we've already discussed, Johannesburg High Court and the Pretoria High Court. I do foresee it, however, making the rounds into the outlying jurisdictions, the small towns like Cape Town and Bloemfontein and the like, and my colleagues can take me out for saying that. Right, and then finally, why are financial disclosure affidavits important? Once again, I'm not saying perfect, I'm saying important. It's a standardized format for ease of assimilating big quantities of information for judges. Disclosures are made under oath, and you'll see on the FDA on the very front page, there's a big warning to people completing the FDA that false disclosures may lead to criminal prosecution for perjury and or fraud. Thirdly, they are exchanged right after the plea, long before discovery, subpoenas, Rule 35.3s, etc. The parties therefore have a snapshot of the financial position from relatively early on. I hold the view that FDAs will become fertile soil for cross-examination. When matters proceed to trial, they will also obviously be very, very serious documents in terms of credibility of litigants, much like our vastly underestimated Family Advocate Annexure A is also a very nice document for credibility based on what the parties insert in the document. The final takeaway from my slot, hopefully, before we go to Stella, is the idea is that armed with the financial snapshots, litigants and their legal teams can properly consider their positions regarding potential outcomes and or settlements early on. If one considers the position before the financial disclosure affidavit, one would at the very earliest get a full snapshot, but also not a fully painted snapshot of the other side's financial position, either by means of a request for further particulars or through the discovery process, where you would also still have to piece together a puzzle. And obviously the soil is quite fertile for obfuscation and delays in that manner. So is the FDF a silver bullet, ladies and gentlemen? No, it's not. As you'll see shortly when Stella works through it, it has several shortcomings. Is it a much better position than we used to have previously? I think so. And I think with proper incorporation and proper development by our courts and proper utilization by litigants, I think this can become a very, very foundational and important document when it comes to settling disputes through our courts, not only in Gauteng, but also throughout the rest of the Republic and even in the magistrates' courts, where obviously at this stage it is not yet mandatory. So I've done the easy bit, the who, what, when, where, and why. So now I'm going to very conveniently bow out and hand over to Stella Kutsia. Stella is a CA, a practicing mediator, and a very, very dear friend. And I appreciate her giving her time today to assist us to better understand the FDF. Stella, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I think you can try and start sharing from your side if the tech deities allow you to.
Thank you so much, Mervyn. First of all, while I'm opening up, I just want to say thank you, Mervyn, for all these learning opportunities that you create for us. And thank you to everyone that joined us so early on a Friday morning. Okay, so can you see my screen? I just want to get, just, oh dear, just a sec.
We can see your screen though, Stella.
Mervyn, I've just sent my screen to a place where I can't see it now. Can I just stop sharing? It's right here at the top. I'm so
oh my goodness.
I'm so sorry. This new technical webinar thing that Mervyn has created.
That's okay. Don't worry.
I'm sure it's going to be fine now.
We'll get there.
Okay. Mervyn, I hear an echo. I don't know if the other people also hear it.
No, it's on my side. I'm going to mute my mic and my sound now. My audio driver is still not working nicely, Stella. I don't know what's happening. I could freak you out now by saying I can actually see your email inbox, but I won't do that to you. After that hiccup, that would be very nasty. I can see your slides, not your inbox. You can go ahead.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. I hope that today's webinar is going to shed some light on the FDF. So my presentation is a practical guide to the completion of the FDF, specifically relating to interim maintenance applications. So Before we start, and we're going to go into a practical, I'm going to show you one that completed FDF, and we'll go through that one in a short while. But on this presentation, I just want to make a broad picture for you to understand the form. So the form is broken up into 4 sections: a general information form, and I've said there it's section 1 and 4 of the form. Then the next one is capital assets and liabilities. That's section 2.1 to 2.13. And you'll see there's in brackets total A to G. There's also totals on the form. You'll see that. And all those totals are then compiled into a summary in section 19. The third section is annual income, and that is sections 2.14 to 2.18, and the totals are totals H to L, and that is then summarized in section 20. And then lastly, the monthly expenses, which is section 3.1. So I just want to keep this picture in mind. So from a financial perspective, I'm coming more from a financial side than from a legal side. Why did they do it like this? For me, the best explanation I can give you, mom or dad, but let's say mom, is applying for maintenance, interim maintenance, while the court proceedings are being finalized. So the monthly expenses will drive, you'll get monthly expenses, and then if you work back, annual income. So you'll see that everywhere on the annual income sections, they ask what is the last 12 months of income, and then they ask estimated income for the rest of the year. So surely the judge will look at what is the monthly expenses, what's the requirement, what is the annual income of both parties, because remember, both parties complete this form before a final decision is made on what maintenance are being granted. And then also, if the annual income is not sufficient, then one can look at the assets and liabilities. You know, is there assets that can be converted into cash maybe to facilitate maintenance of the minor child? So that's just a broad overview of the form. So if we look at the supporting documents under the general information section, the supporting documents would be an ID document, birth certificate, marriage certificate, proof of residence, ANC contract, and any pending or finalized court cases between the spouses. But we'll go through that on the form. Then if the second section, the assets and liabilities. So I split it between assets and liabilities. So on the one side, the assets, fixed properties, homes, holidays, homes at the market value. Normally, the FDFs that I've assisted to complete, people maybe do a screenshot on the market, you know, what is the average for a similar home in the area, and that you can then use as the supporting document. The value of the movable assets, that is vehicles, trailers, caravans, etc. Then bank account statements for the last 6 months. The form requires 6 months bank statements. You'll see it displayed on the forms as well. And the reason I've got it on red under assets and also red under liabilities, because the bank account can either be an asset or a liabilities, depending on what the balance is. Is it a plus or a minus? In overdraft, it will be a liability. If it's a positive balance, it will obviously be an asset. Okay, then further on, value of furniture. Normally people just make an estimate on that value. Personal assets more than 5,000, like jewelry, valuable collections, valuable certificates. Then next item is pension fund, provident funds, and retirement annuity statements can be used as evidence, supporting documents. Investment shares, futures, commodities, etc., statements thereof. Life policies and endowment policy statements. So specifically when we go into the example, I'll talk more about on the life policies. Then personal loans or money owed to the client more than 2,000 Rand. And there again, it's an asset because someone owes the money to the person doing this FDF, or on the other side, it could also be a liability where they owe money to a third party. Then loan accounts in a trust, the statement of that. Next item is value or cash on hand, more than 2,000. And the form also says currency indicated. So maybe you've got dollars in your couch somewhere. So no pun intended. So if you've got any dollars stashed away, please declare that as well. And the form actually asks you, where is the money being held? You know, so you've got to say in my couch or in my safe. And then that currency must then be converted into Rand so if you've got a foreign currency cash on hand, you would convert it at the current exchange rate to get the ZAR value. Then if you've got a business interest or you've got your own business, the annual financial statements for the previous 2 years needs to be supplied. And then also share option statements in specifically employee benefits. I've said they're vested. So from financial point of view, that share option is only available to be converted into cash if it's vested. However, Mervyn and I had a talk about that, and he said, you know, from a legal point of view, you can add that, put a value to it, but it is rather complex to determine that value. But that we're not going to go into that for today. Maybe, Mervyn, we can have a webinar sometime soon specifically on share options. Okay, then moving on to the liabilities. So also bear in mind with the assets, some assets can also have a liability connected to it. For instance, the house. The physical house is an asset, you can sell it, but then you've also got a liability connected to the house in terms of the home loan statement. Okay, then as I mentioned, bank account statements can be a liability if it's an overdraft. Then financing or amounts owed on movable assets like your vehicles. Again, a vehicle is an asset, but it's also a liability if you still owe money on it. Then retail accounts like Woolworths, Games, Foschini's, whatever, those accounts will be a liability. Amounts owed to SARS, very important. If there is huge amounts owing to SARS, that should also be included. Credit card statements for 6 months. Again, I've seen where I've done a FDF and the credit card was actually in a debit. So it's actually a positive. So the bank owes the client. So it is an asset. That's why I've got it in red as well. It can be an asset as well, depending on the balance on the credit card. And then personal, I've mentioned this, personal loans owed to third parties, more than 2,000 Rand. Okay, then just another thing that I want to alert you to is try and get all these documents, the statement date, the latest statement date to be the same date. For instance, now you complete the FDF and the bond account is dated the 31st of March 2023, but your bank statements are dated November last year, and your credit cards are dated December last year. It's better. The best is to have the same date so that it's a true reflection, a snapshot on a certain date. This is the financial situation of the applicant. Okay, moving on. Then for the annual income documents, documents required are IRP 5 for the last year, the last 3 months pay slips, additional amounts or bonuses received not included in gross income. So maybe you received additional amounts that for some reason is not reflected on your IRP 5, which is not the right way to do it, but you know, all things happens. You need to declare that. Other benefits received from your employer, for instance, meals, accommodation, etc. Income from investments, dividends, interest or rental income. Income from own business, your bank statement or your management accounts. So remember, there's a value on your business, but there's also income from your business. So that's why the business is reflected in 2 sections, in the capital section as well as the annual income section. Then tax liability on income received from your business, your last tax return. Income from pension or living annuities, income from any other asset or business interest, estimate of the net income for the next 12 months. Do a calculation with certain assumptions. Okay, so this is what I've just mentioned previously. On the income side, they look at what was the last 12 months, but the actual, in the summary, where we bring down all the totals that we've provided in the form, in the summary section, they look at your estimate for the next 12 months. So when I say do calculation with certain assumptions, it could be maybe that in the next 12 months, your income is going to be different from what the previous 12 months, in terms of maybe you sold one of the properties and you're not going to get rental income. So it is good to maybe just do an extra with the calculation of how you got to that estimated income for the next 12 months. Okay, then income from state benefits, including state pensions, child or disability benefits, if you receive any income from that, and latest income amounts used as a basis to estimate the income for the next 12 months. That's just what I've explained just now. Okay, moving on to monthly expenses. The supporting documents here is bank statements, including credit cards, for the past 6 months. So what is very useful to do is to summarize bank statements for the last 6 months and get an average spend. But where you've got like debit orders, that's a fixed amount. You can just use the last bank statements as a reference to the monthly expenses, because that is a fixed amount that goes through. So for other stuff like groceries, etc., you can petrol, maybe try and get an estimate for the last 6 months and then use that on the monthly expenses section. Then you can also use a school fees statement, rates and taxes statement, electricity account statements, levy statement if you're in a complex and you need to pay levies, rental agreement, where you are not the owner of a home and you actually rent a place. You can provide the rental agreement with the stipulated amount. Medical aid contribution statement. This is a very important one, because the medical aid contribution statement actually shows what the main member's contribution is and what the child's contribution is. And that is then directly populated on the expense form. So you can clearly see this is the contribution for the adult and this is for the minor child or children. Then you can also use your cell phone account statement if you know, or if it's not a fixed amount, or if it's a fixed amount, use the cell phone account statement, or you can get the average from your bank statements, and you can also use the security alarm statement for those expenses. Okay, so moving on to some tips. I've just put some tips down for you guys. We are going to distribute the presentation as well as the FDF document. First of all, as I mentioned, fixed property is both an asset and a liability. We'll see when we go through the form, the equity amount is the value of the property less the bond account. Then movable property is both an asset and liability, also mentioned. Bank accounts and credit card. Make sure if it's in a debit or a credit. If an overdraft, show as negative in brackets. Supporting documents reference next to each amount on the FDF. So you'll see that on our example as well. Use 6 months bank statement summary for average spend for monthly expenses. The value of your interest in the property, it's directly taken from the FDF. Only account for 50% if married in community of property or registered in both parties' name, because it asks you what is your value in the property. So you can't take the full amount if half actually belongs to your spouse. The earth number of properties is also required, and you can actually get that from the rates and taxes account statement. Life policies shown as 0 in current surrender value. See section 2.5. There's no current value until the person is deceased. Remember the capital portions with the assets and liabilities shows what is your financial value at a certain point in time. And a life policy, you've got no claim on the life policy until you decease. So you can't add that value as an asset at the point of completing the form. If that makes sense. Retirement annuity, use the current value, not the projected value, because it's a snapshot at the point in time what the value is of the annuity. Share options use vested amount. If not vested as yet, amount is 0. So that is my point of view from a financial point of view. But as I say, we can debate that about calculating actual value for legal terms. But so far, yeah, that's my point of view, and it is debatable on that. Okay, then use supporting documents at same end dates where possible. Snapshot of financial position at a specific date. I've mentioned that. Complete the form in PDF and have the summary of the calculation of the totals in Excel, saving time to recalculate if there are any changes and more accurate. So I've done quite a few of these FDFs, and it's the PDF is not a very friendly document to use, and to go backwards and forwards to calculate these amounts. If you're just on the side, you've got Excel open, and as you go through the form, just put in those amounts, and then it's more accurate to calculate for the totals at the end. Okay, so that is me. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to, I see we've only got 20 minutes left. I'm just going to get the next, the document that I want to share with you guys. Are you seeing my screen, Mervyn? Not.
We see you loud and clear, no problem.
Do you see the FDF document?
I see the FDF and a whole lot of X's.
Okay. Yeah. So as I said, this is a real case that I've assisted to complete. Just on that, so I say assisted to complete. Remember, this is an affidavit that the client must complete. So if someone else completes it on behalf of the client, it's very important that after that person has completed it, sit with the client, go through the whole document so that the client knows exactly what they're signing for, because they're signing it as an affidavit. But for confidentiality purposes, I've put in all the X's where it's personal information of the client. So this is just the information section. And as Mervyn said earlier, if you are found to have been deliberately untruthful, criminal proceedings may be brought against you for perjury and or fraud. So this is a serious document, and the client needs to know that that is the case. Okay, and then you fill in the attorney. This was a different case, not one of your clients, Mervyn. Okay, so here's the just general information on the client, self-explanatory. I'm not going to go through that because of time. So just to give you a picture, this is for a lady that wanted to apply for interim maintenance. They're still staying together. That's why it's shared residency, and there's a minor child involved. And she's got her own business, just to give you some background. Okay, then moving on to point 2.1. So here's the property. You need to put in the IRF number that you can get from the rates and taxes account. You put in the bond account, and so the current market value of the property, what can you sell the property at this point in time? How much would you get for the property? So you can see here plus minus, it's an estimate. We're not 100% sure. So please, when you're not sure of an amount and you don't have supporting documents, put in plus minus, because it covers you a bit that you didn't put an exact amount. Then the balance on the mortgage account, that is the amount. And here you can say annexure 2. So that annexure will then talk to this number. If they open the annexure, I'm not going to open annexures, but then that number will be explained. Who pays the mortgage bond? The respondent, which is the person actually completing this form. Then the equity, as I explained, the equity is you take the current market value minus the amount that you own is the equity. And again, it's a plus minus because the market value was plus minus. Then they ask, what is the total value of your interest in the property? Because this, here we said property registered in both parties' names. So she is only entitled to 50% of this property, hence her interest is half of the total equity in the property. Okay, then the 2.2 is just the same if there is a second property owned by the parties. 2.3, yeah, bank accounts. Okay, so if you can see here, you display, and here it also asks for 6 months bank statements, and you'll see the annexures is a few annexures because it's more than, it's about 6 months of, at least 6 months of bank statements. So there is a current account and there's a 7-day notice account. You display the account number, which I've hidden now, and then the balance of the accounts. And this balance must talk to the latest statement on the attachment. So you use the latest balance. The total value of your interest in all accounts. So this C1 total is the 36 plus the 44 is here. And this is what I'm saying is have Excel open somewhere and record these numbers on the side. Then you don't have to go back again. Okay, then the next one is investments, including shares, etc. Like here, this lady had a tax-free savings account for her daughter, sorry, for the minor child, and this is the current value. There's an investment number, there's an annexure to substantiate that number. Again, this is section C2, and the value is then brought over to this subtotal. Next up is life insurance and endowment policies. So here is a Liberty policy, the surrender value. So you need to put in the surrender value at the current date. Here's a life cover, and here you can see 0. We've put in 0 because there's, at this point in time, you cannot claim any money on life cover. And again, here's the total of this section. And of course, also the annexures for that. Okay, here, money owed to you in excess of 2,000 Rand. There was nothing for this person, so not applicable. The total for this section is null. Here is your money that your dollars that you're stashing in the couch or somewhere else. Here is the place where you disclose it. So where is the money held? In the couch or in a safe or whatever, the total amount, the currency, and the value, total current value of your interest. So you need to convert this because we are reporting in rands. You cannot have a dollar or a euro amount here. So please convert it at the exchange rate at the date that this is completed. Okay, next on details of personal belongings individually worth more than 5,000 Rand. Here is include vehicles, collections, pictures, jewelry, furniture, etc. Here's a vehicle, and there is an annexure for it. This lady has provided on We Buy Cars, what can she actually get for the vehicle at the moment, and that's the estimated amount that was provided. Then furniture as well, and so this C6, the total is being brought up here, and then this total is add all the C1 to C6 at the top. And again, as I said, if you've got it in Excel, you can just populate that number and it's quick and easy. Okay, moving on to capital liabilities. So here we're looking at money owed on credit cards, store cards, bank loans, HP finance agreements, etc. EDGAR's, First National Bank, this is a credit card. And please note that because it's owed, it's a liability, it's the numbers are in brackets, meaning it's a liability and it's a negative. Here we also account for the source liability that's owed. Loan from parents, paid attorney fees for divorce. That's a good one, I think, that needs to be added as a personal loan. In this instance, we actually got a statement from the attorney providing the money that and proof from the parents that they actually paid for the attorney and that she still needs to pay back the money. And this total D is then all of these amounts added up. Then in this instance, this lady is a speech therapist. So she is a sole trader. So she hasn't got a separate bank account for her business. Because she's a sole proprietor and she hasn't got a separate bank account, so we cannot add any amounts here because it's already accounted for in a bank balance on the other side. We're going to account for income from the business, but we cannot add this because that will then be double counting, if that makes sense to you. So in the case where you've got a separate business and you've got a separate bank accounts and separate management accounts for the business, then obviously that will be included in here. But in this case, she hasn't got a separate bank account. So the value is 0. Here is the next item is pension interest. So here is a retirement annuity and there is an amount, date, the pension was calculated, there's an annexure, proof was obtained from discovery statement, and that was the statement date, and that is the current value of the retirement annuity. And of course, if there's any more pension interest, that will be added. In this case, there was only the one for 69,000, and that is the total then of total F, as you remember from my presentation where I've broken down the totals for ease of reference. Okay, next item is assets not listed. So here we look at share options, futures, commodities. So the ones that you're not the normal standard ones, you're not going to really get any values here, but I haven't come across. But as I said, we can debate about the share options. If it's vested, I would include that amount in here. Are you a founder or trustee or beneficiary of any trust? So what's interesting here, you only need to disclose it. IT number, capacity, there's no amount required here. So this 2.13 can actually be included as information. It's not really a financial disclosure. Okay, then income earned from employment. This lady, as I said, is self-employed. See section 2.15, the next session. But if you did, if the client is employed, obviously you will fill in the gross income for the last year as per the IRP5. You'll attach the IRP5. Net income less tax. And UIF, do not deduct the pension fund. So those amounts will be populated. Here we talk about any other bonuses that was not included in the top amount, in this gross income amount. Details of value of any benefits in kind, as I said, travel expenses maybe being refunded, accommodation, etc. Your estimate, and clearly note here, as I said before, your estimate of your next income from this employer for the next 12 months. So there you can say, okay, we suspect we're going to get an increase of 5%. Please just bear in mind that there's also a tax implication. The higher you go, the more the tax. So it's not a real 5%. But you can do a calculation around and maybe just have a separate calculation with certain assumptions how you got to those numbers. Then estimate total of all net income earned from all employment. And again, it's the estimate. It's not, that's the number that's being displayed in the totals. It's not your actual for the last 12 months. But the actuals is the basis to get to the estimate. Next item, income from investments, dividends, interest, and rental income. Again, here we've said that she's trading in her own name. Date on which to which your last account was completed, that was the amount. So she had financials which we attached about her gross profit. And then the tax payable, and then the net income that was generated from the business is that amount. Details and value of any dividends. Personal and business expenses are paid from one bank account. Personal expenses paid when there is sufficient funds available after all debit orders are paid. Yeah, just to show that there's not a fixed income that she generates, and because she's a speech therapist, she only works when the school is open. School holidays, no work, no pay. So that must also be considered. And that's what we explained here, depending on available amount, as income varies every month. The average income that she takes from the business is about 26,000, but it varies. If the estimate figure directly below is different from the net income at the end of the last completed accounts, briefly explain the reasons. So difference of 1,650 due to increase of that amount in income less the increase of tax. Oh, okay. So we did a calculation and we said, okay, so the tax is going to increase, and that is why there's a difference of this amount. And then your estimate of your net income for the next 12 months, there was a calculation with the indexer, and that's the total for this section. Mervyn, we're still good. I'm not, well, I think we're running out of time, but so I'm just going to go very quickly here. Self-employment, again, income received in the last financial year. If you are self-employed, you can put that in. But yeah, just be careful, because this is like a duplication. Now you've got your income from, it says here, and I think this is one of the flaws of this document. Income from investments, dividends, rental income. But here they talk about your income from your business. Complete this section giving details of your income of your business. So now we've completed income from business, and the second section, they ask income from self-employment. So if you complete this, you're going to double count for it. So just be careful to look out for that. If you've got other assets or partnerships, then you can use this section for to complete that. Income from state benefits, very self-explanatory. I'm not going to go through that. Then any other income, like pension or living annuities, income received in the last 12 months. And then again, they ask what did you receive in the last 12 months and what's your estimate? And here the total, the amount that is disclosed is the estimate for the next 12 months. Again, using history to project the next 12 months. Okay, so then that is the end of all the details, and then we come to the summary. So as I explained, here's a summary of your capital. These amounts are the totals at the top of the document that was calculated. The family home, remember, was 750,000, etc. Here's the totals for all the above sections. Then the total value of your assets, it's all these amounts added up, gives you that amount, less your current value of your liabilities, which is this amount, and that gives you value of your assets, less the value of your liabilities. So it's the 1.3 minus 115,000 gives you the 1.2 million. That's her financial position. Then summary of income, again, look here, all estimated amounts for the next for the next year, and it's an annual amount. So here, 314. We don't need to put any annexures here because it's already, the supporting documents are displayed at the top in the detail. Okay, and then we come to the next section, which is I see we've got a few minutes left. the expenditure. So as you can see, for this specific client, I did a separate annexure. So you can complete it on this form, which is quite fine, but I did not do that. So I'm just going to stop sharing this one, or I wonder if I can just do this and share the other screen. There, can you see this, Mervyn?
Stella, not yet. It's probably going to just take a moment to share. Listen, but don't panic. I think we've covered most of the bases. So those who need to run at 9 can obviously run at 9. But
Okay.
I think take your time. Don't panic. I'm sure everyone will agree with me. The subject matter is too important to rush through it. I can see your screen now.
Okay. So this is the annexure 28 that was prepared. I did it on Excel. It's just so much easier, and also for the amounts to add up. So and sometimes the expenditure is very specific to the client. For instance, so here's schedule of monthly expenses for the client, the minor child, date completed. Nappies, baby cream, blah, blah, blah. So here, as we all know, I know you guys know how to complete the monthly expenses. I just wanted to show you that because this is so specific items relating to the child, all these X's is the child's name that we've put in here. So the expenses for the adult is under self, the child, the minor child is in her column, and then the total. So here you can see we've put in, that's also why I like to do a separate schedule. Then you can put in comments for clarity. Father pays the same amount. So the actual expense is double this amount. So we only accounted for what the mother is paying. The father pays the other balance. Here, school items, the other part is gonna, what are you claiming 225 Rand for a month? And we can put in details there, medication, not covered, doctors, and the rest is really self-explanatory. You guys are familiar with all these items. And again here, so we've got the bond account, annexure 2, the bond statement to prove what is the amount that is being paid. And we've allocated a third of the bond to the minor child, the split as what you guys are familiar with. A third of the expenses is allocated to the child, house maintenance, vehicle maintenance, etc. And then here, cell phone, security, rates and taxes, all these expenses has got supporting documents, which is already on the FDF form. So it's just the reference to that. And then, yeah, and then that's the total. So in my view, the judge is going to look at, okay, this lady has got expenses of 37,000 per
Stella,
month.
just scroll down a little bit. There's a part that hasn't been redacted.
Can you
Thank
see
you.
now? Okay. So the total expense is 37,000, of which allocated for the minor child is nearly 15,000. And now again, the other party is going to do the same form. And surely that, in my mind, this is what the judge going to look at, the income. Remember the expected income for the next year. Is dad going to be able to pay this, etc. But luckily, that's not my decision. Yeah, so Mervyn, I think that's it from me.